Journalism is one of the many professions held in high esteem due to the glamour that comes with the practice, especially television and radio. The profession, however, is not without its own challenges, as women journalists find it difficult to enjoy their career in the face of issues posed by the industry. Before now, journalism was basically viewed as a profession dominated by men. As it grew, women were restricted by custom, tradition, and religion from getting into the profession, and those who dared were faced with significant discrimination. In many universities across the world, where journalism courses are offered, it is not strange to find a high percentage of young women with big dreams of becoming high flyers in the industry. But unfortunately, only few of them make it to newsrooms in the print and broadcast media. Several researches have been conducted in order to explore why there are fewer women on the field after graduation. They found that female journalists were discouraged because after graduation, they were not getting jobs as their male counterparts, and when they do, they experience difficulty in rising through the ranks to higher positions, consequently reducing their chances of attaining the desired representation in the industry. In male-dominated societies like Nigeria, female journalists are confronted with the challenges of religious and cultural limitations that further strengthen existing gaps between the male and the female genders. Across some newsrooms, whether television or newspapers in the FCT, the stories of challenges female journalists face differ. For many, long work hours, huge pay gaps between them and their male counterparts, their safety while on the field, and segregation by their immediate society top the list.
No matter what we're going to say that is a level playing ground, it doesn't work out like that in the newsroom. For example, female journalists in the newsroom are expected to do the same thing that the men do, which is just normal. But when it comes to promotion, responsibility, you find out that a male journalist has the possibility of growing in the job. The woman, for her to grow in the job as a journalist is very, very difficult. You could spend years and years on putting the same effort as your male counterparts. But when it comes to promotion, you see that your male counterpart gets promoted faster. Another challenge that women might not voice out is that the female journalists in the newsroom gets harassed. You might not want to say it. Harassment is there on a silent form. Sometimes you meet some of your male bosses or seniors might put up some they might just kind of show interest in you, and you are not interested. It's going to affect your job somehow.
Well, security number one, which to me is even for everybody. We need security. We need insurance. Insurance is key. Our job is risky. And in this part of the world, we have zero or minimal insurance cover for journalists. And when it has to do with a female journalist, what's it called? The challenges the male journalists will be facing, the women will be facing it double. So we need insurance cover, and security. It will help a lot of women to thrive more. And maybe job scheduling also, because most mothers, there are times maybe if there's a 10 p.m. news, for instance, if you don't have a husband who is understanding, you may be affected and you have to be looking for colleagues to cover up for you. And for how long can that be?
It's not easy being a woman, and it's not easy being a female journalist, because the little things that will stand you out as a journalist, because you're a woman, it's not really there. The support, if in the office, your boss, as the boss, likes you, as in, it kind of favors you, the others will say, she has started sleeping with him. Whereas nothing like that. Probably because you are hardworking. Probably because you know your onions and he takes interest. But if it had been a man that your boss favors, there's no problem. But because it is a woman, Even your fellow women will be the ones telling the tales. They will carry the story out and they will tell all sorts of stories about you.
Even though they call us, all of us, male, they say we are men. Because female among us are fragile. Sometimes they'll be pregnant. Sometimes their, their parents or their husbands might not allow them to either stay late in the night. Some stay late in the night, some travel far and wide. And these are impediments that make female journalism not to thrive.
At some point, men are even scared of get closer to the female journalists because they believe that, okay, yes, maybe they have something doing, they have something doing at that prime age that are working, trying to push their career and make sure that everything is in line. They missed the point of maybe getting married. So what will now become the issues now? After maybe 30 to 40 something years now, the husbands are not coming for you. You have dedicated most of your time for journalism.
It is a different story for some others who say these challenges only exist in the mindset of the individuals involved. For journalists like Ruth Agwili, a seasoned broadcaster in one of the leading news stations in the country, although these limitations and challenges tend to show their ugly heads, they can be managed through strong will, determination, and the right mentorship platforms.
This will be my 15th year as a media practitioner. I've seen a lot of women thrive in the media industry. I will speak for my organization, which is the NTA. I've watched role models, mentors who are women, start from the scratch and, grow into the limelight and become veterans that they are today, people who inspired my career, starting. So I'll say there's parity in the media space, but that's not to say there's no challenges women face, especially in the media space. But I believe as a woman, if you believe this is your passion, if you believe this is where you want to build a career, if you just keep pushing and doing what it takes, putting in all your efforts in terms of consistency, hard work, you persevere because it doesn't come cheap. You have to persevere. There are times you have to work for free. There are times you have to put in blood and sweat into the job because you have passion for it. So you tell yourself there's no difference being a woman or a man. And I believe in developing yourself. You don't just stay static. You try to expand. For me, I can do camera work. I can edit, I do scripting, I do voicing. Aside reading the news, I present, I produce. So you have to be diverse if you want to stay relevant. And that's where consistency comes to play. So you don't just learn some of these extra skills just because you want to be relevant. You have to be consistent in it. So you keep building yourself, not just as a woman, but as a media practitioner.
Well, I think there's no hindrance for female journalists, if you ask me. Because if you do well, journalism is one field where it's a practical field. You don't come into journalism and hide. Like most Nigerians who are not employable or incapable of doing things they go in for. I'm sure you're following. A lot of people go take jobs that they cannot fit in because they don't know how to do those jobs. In journalism, you don't have that room. For instance, if you are a reporter, you go cover an event for 3 hours, you are expected to summarize in 3 minutes. You must speak out what will become news. So if you're not good, you can't do that. Now, if you are also not very good, right? You can't cast news if you're made a newscaster, okay? Whether female or male. So for me, I don't look at it as a gender thing. That's why we're called gentlemen of the press. If you're good in the media, you would excel.
I didn't have any issues with either my family members or members of the public about my career choice at any point in time, except that, along the line, sometimes there's this perception, which is, of course, false, that female journalists are exposed to maybe politicians or business moguls or, the general public. So people tend to see you with the eye of you being loosed. Aside that, I think I've not had any issues.
Nigeria, like many other countries of the world, is struggling to attain a completely free and objective press as a result of government and other external influences. Oftentimes, journalists face a lot of censorship, undermining the fundamental principles of press freedom. According to data, imprisonment is becoming a widespread campaign around the globe, not only in anti-democratic governments, but also in democracies. As of April 2024, the landscape for women journalists remain grim, with numerous cases of detention and imprisonment across various regions. 92 women journalists are currently behind bars, some for decades, others awaiting potential death sentences. 57 journalists were either detained, arrested, or imprisoned since the start of this year.
Journalist. He's my colleague, he's a journalist. Officer, he's my colleague, he's a journalist. He has an identity card, he's a journalist. He is a journalist, he has an identity card. He is a journalist, he is a journalist. Don't do this.
A number of times, female journalists in the country have been caught in the web of hostilities in the Nigerian media space. Earlier in the year, the management of the Whistler newspapers in Abuja demanded the immediate release of its reporter, Kasarachi Anyogulu, who was arrested and detained by police operatives in Abuja in February 2024. Anyogulu was filming a raid on Biru the Change operators in Wuse Zone 4 when she was arrested, despite identifying herself as a journalist. She was allegedly manhandled, threatened, and had her equipment confiscated. On 22 July 2022, the Nigerian police raided the head office of the People's Gazette, located in the Utako area of Nigeria's capital, Abuja, and arrested 5 staff members of the newspaper, including female reporters. Worried by these disturbing data and testimonies shared by these journalists, I decided to seek audience with Basi Ita, the chairperson of the Abuja branch of the National Association of Women Journalists. She tells me that over the years, the association has been working with relevant stakeholders in helping to bridge existing gender gaps in the industry and protect women in the media against all forms of harassment and violence, both in the newsroom and in the field.
We in our work, we try to create awareness. We do so many seminars, so many training, try to create awareness for the women to stand up. Let the women stand up. And one thing too, the women should be keepers of themselves. Let's watch out for ourselves. If a woman is harassed, what stops? Because they say an injury to one is an injury to all. By the time women are doing it, set up the men, let them fall, and they will learn their lessons. I've had cases that bosses in the newsroom or bosses in the media houses are talking to women. And by the time you tell that man, Oga, see this thing you are doing, I'm going to say it, or I'm going to tell this one, or I'm going to, he will threaten you, he cannot do you anything, as far as you have known yourself. And we have the VAP laws too. We have some policies and some guidelines and some laws that, forbid these things. So once you have known your rights, that is why we keep organizing seminars, keep talking to ourselves, keep bringing people to talk to us, bring lawyers to talk to us, collaborate with NGOs, let them share their experience, and bring people that have passed through these things to share their experiences, because whatever happens to anybody today has happened to some other person. So we encourage women to share their experiences. We encourage men to watch out for other younger ones. We encourage them to talk to other younger ones.
The message that I have for them is a situation where people are harassing you sexually in your offices, speak out. You don't continue to die in silence. We can't continue to see situations where people are harassed and they just keep quiet and you don't talk about it. Whatever that has happened to you, speak out, and shame such people. And at our own level, we'll also take such things up. I know that there are relevant laws that speak against such things, but they cannot operate until somebody comes out to say, okay, look at what is happening. You understand? So I want to also appeal to people who operate within the newsroom. They must know that they are even beyond the frontliners, they are the gatekeepers. And if there is confusion among the gatekeepers, it simply means that unfiltered stories will be out there. And it could result in dissemination of fake news. You understand? It can cause chaos. It can cause anarchy. So there must be order in our newsrooms. There must be respect for one another at the newsrooms.
Despite global efforts and commitments made in establishing gender equality and improving the position of women in the media since the adoption of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action in 1995 sections G and J, the most recent global media monitoring project shows that media content is far from gender sensitive and is often presented from the male-dominated perspective. Women remain only 1 in 4 of the people seen, heard, or read about in the news since 2010. Their viewpoints are not included, and they are often portrayed according to stereotypes. Over the years, television and film productions across the national and international fora haven't done much in changing these stereotypes. Oftentimes, female journalists are often portrayed as ruthlessly ambitious or widely incompetent individuals who obtain information from male sources through unethical means like sexual exploitation, all of which reinforce these beliefs in the minds of the average citizen. How then can we rewrite the narrative and improve the conditions of female journalists in Nigeria?
I must tell you that it is sad that there is no law that protects journalists today. There's none. And we have continued to appeal, to the lawmakers. We must have to be deliberate about this and support efforts by the Nigerian press organizations.
I believe that media organizations can ensure the protection of female journalists in and outside of the newsrooms against any forms of abuse, harassment, stereotypes, or violence when they regularly set up awareness creation and training opportunities for female journalists to understand the dynamics of these issues and how they tend to manifest, to spot harassment, to stop any form of abuse and violence, and how they can safely and strategically report the same, and building their capacity in the areas of risk management in hostile environment or conflict-prone areas, and legal rights can help them and empower them to be able to navigate this. Media organizations can also ensure that they set up clear cut-out sexual harassment policies that will be regularly emphasized on and read out. This would also help protect female journalists within the newsroom and even when they go out on assignment to report. One other ways that we can protect female journalists is when media organizations provide safety kits, tools and gadgets that will help journalists who report in conflict-prone zones and areas to protect and safeguard themselves just in case of any emergency.
If one is harassed in the place of work, be it male or female, or assaulted in the place of work, result can be heard to the police. But in most cases, there are even administrative disciplinary actions for assault. Once the administrative aspect is taken and the person being assaulted is satisfied with the decision, well, maybe compensation could even be part of it. Dismissal could be part of it, because no workplace encourages assault.
In spite of these challenges, women are not relenting in their efforts to get to the top and desired positions like their male counterparts. Although the profession is deeply characterized by gender segregation with women in the minority, they are still noticeable and found to be actively involved in journalism. Female journalists are aspiring to improve their status and to resist the culture of stereotype, which has been the bane of the industry, by embracing areas that had been traditionally occupied by the male, such as hard news, crime, and politics.